Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today, we all have a new president, or at least I'm assuming we will by the time you see this. Either that or the country is being burnt to the ground as I'm speaking. But I'm assuming things went well and we now have a new president, like it or not. Well, I want to talk today about something a lot of people are concerned about because of this new president, and that is, what is Joe Biden going to do when it comes to guns? What is his anti-gun agenda? Well, to be honest, I don't know if Joe Biden actually has that much of an anti-gun agenda. Of course, the people who like to write his website do and blah, 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 and the people that they were trying to appeal to like to hear that stuff. But Joe Biden himself, I honestly don't know if he has any agenda, to be fair with you. I don't know if he actually puts that much thought into anything these days. So I don't think it's really Joe Biden's anti-gun agenda we have to worry about so much. It's the person who probably controlled the website and controls the message, etc., Kamala Harris. Because I do believe Kamala Harris is rabidly anti-gun. I think Joe Biden, the way he is, he's someone, because he wants to bring everybody back together. If it was up to him, he would lay off of anti-gun stuff because he knows that's going to go all against his thing about bringing everybody back together, because as soon as he does something anti-gun, it's going to further divide people than they are even now, make them even more divided. So I think he would be smart enough to forego it, or at least willing to forego it, just to get along better. And plus, since he has a clearly divided, evenly divided Senate, he knows the likelihood of anything getting through is slim to none. And that's something we got to keep in our heads too as gun owners. The chance of getting anything through the Senate right now is slim to none, even if they try. And yes, I know there's little things announced here, and this has been pre-filed, that's been pre-filed. That happens every year. Every session, they file the same things. They never go anywhere. They never even make it to the Senate. So I wouldn't worry too much about most of it. But there's some of it we have to worry about, and we have to pay attention. Whether you're worried about things or not, you still have to pay attention. But there's a big difference between panicking and being alert. So let's keep that in mind while we talk about what we think they're going to do and what they're not going to do. Like I said, I think Joe Biden would be willing to say, hey, I want to get along with the Republicans in the Senate. There's not any chance of really passing any anti-gun legislation in the Senate that's any type of serious thing like assault weapons bans, etc. So in the spirit of getting along with the Republicans and in the spirit of bringing people together, I'm going to forego any big anti-gun acts. Now, Kamala Harris, different story. I think she would ram whatever she could ram through the Senate through tomorrow if she thought she could get away with it, anti-gun stuff. She would take away semi-automatic weapons. She would take away standard capacity magazines. She would increase scrutiny for buying guns. She would increase scrutiny for buying ammunition. She would make it almost impossible to afford buying guns or buying ammunition. If she could. I don't think she can. I can't even imagine a way she could right now. But there are some things they're going to try to do. There's things I've been saying from the beginning that we need to pay attention to. I don't think universal background checks will be a hard sell. I think they'll be able to convince enough Republicans that is something they could get through the Senate. So universal background checks, I think, is the thing they're going to hone in on to be their big victory of their administration. Universal background checks. So everyone pay attention to that. I don't even like background checks, period, much less universal background checks. I live under that in Washington, and although it hasn't really affected me, I still don't like it on principle, so I will stand against that. But that's what I think is going to be their major campaign, is universal background checks. But we'll see. So keep your eyes open for that. And like I say, don't run around with chickens with your head cut off, like chickens with your heads cut off. Just be alert. Because when we act crazy, we look crazy, and it makes other people think, well, maybe we should take their guns away. So keep that in mind the whole time. So that's what I think will be their big legislative thing, the universal background checks. The other thing I'm afraid they're going to try to do through the ATF and through executive order is doing away with online gun sales and online ammo sales. They're going to make it to where it all has to be in person. And a lot of people will say, well, it's in person anyway. The gun goes to an FFL and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they know that too, but that's not how they're going to portray it to people. They're going to portray it to people that people shouldn't be allowed to buy guns off the internet. They shouldn't be allowed to buy ammo off the internet. That way, because if they do that, the salesperson can't look at them and say, oh, that guy's crazy. I ain't selling him a gun or ammo, which almost never happens anyway, because crazy people seldom try to buy guns. But they're going to make it to where you can only buy point of sale. You have to be at the point of sale. No anybody in between. Now, a lot of people say, well, they'll just advertise on the internet and then we can have it transferred from one dealer to the other and they can work to where the dealer pays them and then we pay the dealer. They're going to make it illegal to advertise is what I think. It's what they're going to try to do. You cannot advertise outside your state, and since the internet reaches outside your state, it's violation of interstate commerce since different states have different gun laws and blah, 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 blah. That's what I think they're going to try to do. I think they're going to try to do away with online ammo and gun sales. You won't see advertisements anymore, just like how you can't see cigarette ads on TV anymore. I don't think you'll see gun ads. And I don't think that would be a hard sell to Congress, even if they tried to take it through the Senate. Because I think most of them would go, well, that's just reasonable that we don't advertise guns to children on the internet and stuff. So that's another thing I think we need to be careful about and something we need to be aware of. Those are where I see most of the national battles being. But I don't think most battles are going to be on the national level. I think they're going to be on a local level. So we need to stay alert. Like I said, people are talking about what's their big anti-gun agenda going to be? Those are the things I think they're going to go after on a national level. They're going to go after, like I said, universal background checks, online ammo sales, online gun sales. That's what they're going to try to do on a national level. But let's remember, most gun control nowadays isn't at a national level. It's at a state level. And let's not forget that. Because I think too often when people start worrying about what Biden's going to do or what someone else is going to do, they stop paying attention to what their local people are doing. So let's keep that in mind in the future here. Remember, most gun control is local, and we need to worry about it on a local level, not so much a federal level. But let's still stay alert and pay attention to what they're doing on the federal level. All right, having said that, I want to move on here and add a little something to what I just said. Not only do we not need to run around with chickens like our heads cut off whenever we think something bad's going to happen, we have to actually make sure something bad is happening first. Don't run off half-cocked with partial information. If you hear something on a gun channel like mine or someone else's, verify it first. Research it. Don't believe it. A lot of these gun channels are just trying to get you riled up. They'll take the little tiniest kernel of information they can get and try to blow it up into something big, so you'll watch their video. If it's not sensational, you won't watch their video. Then they won't get ad revenue, and then they won't get big numbers to where they can get endorsements and sponsorship. So verify things. Don't run off half-cocked, like I said, with partial information. It makes us look bad. It's kind of like the whole Manatee story. Remember recently we heard, oh my God, a manatee was mutilated. Someone carved the word Trump into the back of a manatee. And we were all like, someone took a knife and carved into the back of a manatee? First, it sounded like maybe the manatee wasn't going to survive from the story. Someone mentioned it to me in my chat, and I'm like, if that story's true, that's horrible. Turned out, wasn't true. When you heard it in the news at first, it sounded almost like it was leading up to, Trump himself was down there with a sharpened golf club holding down a manatee, carving his name into the side of it. That's what it was sounding like when it was being repeated by some people on the left. But what turned out, that didn't happen. In fact, carved and mutilated quickly turned into scraped. Like someone scraped the name Trump onto a manatee, which is still pretty bad. If someone took like a fork or a sharp object and scraped something onto an animal, that's horrible. But quickly, scraped became an obsolete term. They stopped using that because it became obvious that what happened is someone took their finger and wrote in the algae on the back of a manatee. Not very sensationalist, is it? That's not very exciting, and it's not riveting, and it's not exploitive, not big news. So they had to make it big news, and that's what happens with a lot of the gun channels. They take a little nothing and turn it into something big. You run around like crazy, and then later when the facts come out, you look stupid. Let's stop looking stupid. Let's make sure that manatee's been hurt before we worry about it. Now, yeah, I'm going to say, it's not good to go up to a manatee and write in the algae on their back. You're supposed to keep your distance from them. But it's not a capital crime. There was no one cruel to an animal. There was no one doing anything harmful in any way other than maybe just being too close to a manatee. But I've seen people swimming and manatees come up right up to them. So, That's what it is. So like I was saying, keep your mind open and your ears open at the same time. Listen to what someone has to say. Research it. Does it seem likely? Does it seem like it's something that actually is happening? Is there evidence to back it up? Does it seem like something that's going to affect us? If not, don't act like idiots about it. If so, still don't act like idiots. Start thinking about what we need to do. Start organizing. Start doing the right things. But let's quit running off half-cocked with a quarter of the information and making ourselves look like a bunch of paranoid ninnies. Hey, I want to take a quick moment today to answer an email I got from a viewer. This person sent me an email saying they were 17 years old, about to turn 18 years old, and they want to buy their first revolver. And a lot of people are going to say, well, they can't buy one until they're 21. They can buy one from a private party, just not an FFL. So they can buy their first revolver at 18. I did. Same thing, from a private party. So they said they're turning 18. They want to buy their first handgun. They want it to be a revolver, but they've never had a father or an uncle or anyone else in their life that knew anything about guns and was able to teach them anything about guns. So they kind of hate to ask this question because it might be simple and it might make them look stupid, but they wanted to ask it. And first off, I want to say, no question if you're a newbie makes you look stupid, makes you look like you want to know something. And you'd be surprised at what people don't know. And what some people who pretend they know a lot, you'd be surprised how little they know. And vice versa, etc. So his question was to me is, he's looking at different guns and what is the difference between a double action trigger and a single action trigger? And how do you remember which one's which? Well, it's very simple. Here's really a really quick, basic way to remember the difference between a double action trigger and a single action trigger. Double action trigger does two things. Cocks the hammer, releases the hammer. It does two things. Double action hammer or trigger. A single action trigger does one thing. Releases the hammer. It doesn't do the first part. Just releases. Something else has to cock the hammer because the trigger does one thing. And if you remember that, that's basically the difference between a double action and a single action trigger. On a single action gun, you have to manually cock the hammer because the trigger does one thing, releases the hammer. On a double action, single action, you don't have to cock the hammer because the trigger does two things for every time you pull it. It cocks the hammer, it releases the hammer. And if it's double action and single action, that means the trigger will cock the hammer and release the hammer, or you can cock the hammer manually and the trigger will simply release the hammer. That's all there is to it. It's that simple. Like I said, double action trigger does two things, single action trigger does one. If you remember that, you'll always remember the difference. All right, I want to end the show today, as usual, with our viewer EDC. And today we have Michael T. Not Mr. T, Michael T. Based on the picture here, I don't think this is Mr. T. But I guess maybe he's Mr. T, not Mrs. T, so maybe he is Mr. T. And Michael T is carrying his Taurus Public Defender with Hornady Critical Defense ammo in a Winthrop holster. Now, I wanted to show this because I've never seen anyone yet that sent me their picture that's actually carrying one of the Taurus Public Defenders. And this, I believe, is the Poly Public Defender. That's really outside the box. I don't see a lot of people carry that. And I like seeing this because it shows people that you don't have to carry one of the same guns everyone else carries. You don't have to carry, it's either got to be a Glock or a Smith & Wesson or a 1911 or blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have to be that. There's lots of great guns out there. There's lots of options. You can make a personal decision on a gun. And it looks like he made a good personal decision on a gun that's good for him. Well, it looks like he makes some bad personal decisions too, because you can tell from the picture here, he's got one of those tattoos that have the Asian symbols on it, and he probably thinks it says something like, strength and charity through peace and blah, 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 and all this stuff. But what it really probably says is pork dumplings, $2 extra. So maybe some good decisions, some bad decisions here. But, you can tell a lot from a picture. But one thing you can tell here, like I said, nice gun. And he's carrying it, like I said, in a Winthrop holster. I like those holsters. Whenever I tell anyone, if you're looking for a quick holster for a gun and you want to see if you like carrying it and you want a decent holster that you can keep carrying afterwards if you want to, go over to Amazon.com and look. Winthrop makes some good ones. Azula makes some good ones. So made a good decision in grabbing his first holster there for it too. So wanted to show him. Oh, and one other thing I'd probably say you can tell from this picture, if you notice, gun safe next to the bed. I like that. Probably means he's single, but I like it. But there you have it. There's our viewer EDC of the day, Mr. Michael T. and his Taurus Poly Public Defender in his Winthrop holster. All right, everybody, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you come back tomorrow. And like I said, today we have a new president, whether we like it or not. We'll have to deal with it, and believe me, we will deal with it because I think we are on a good path. We are on a winning path in the courts. We've been winning so many rights back over the last 30 years. A lot of people don't remember what it was like 30 years ago. Trust me, it's a lot better now than it was then. So everyone out there, just keep your head up. Like I said, we'll make it, especially if we ignore the fear mongers and the profiteer and the people who like to sensationalize everything. If we ignore them and we let our better angels take control and we do what we need to do and we do it in the right way, we're going to win. And I just want everyone to remember that because, as far as the state of the world today is concerned, it is what it is. But in the future, like I said, if we keep our heads about us and we fight the right way, what things will be is better.